Yo, you're listening to the Money Monopolizers Podcast, helping you take control of your financial destiny. It's about time that we invest more in our financial literacy and work towards building generational wealth. If you think you're ready to do the same, then you've come to the right place. Alex, Marlon, y'all ready? Let's get this bread.
What's good, everybody? It's Alex Camuno here with the Money Monopolizers Podcast, and I'm here with my co-host, Marlon Walls. Marlon, how you doing today, bro?
What's going on, man? I'm just excited to get this started up. I know we've been talking about it for the past couple of weeks, and I'm just ready to see this actually into action now.
Oh, yeah, for sure. It's definitely something we're excited to start. So before we get started, though, I kind of wanted to introduce or explain why we are starting this podcast and kind of what the purpose is and what our mission is here at the Money Monopolizers. So for us, our mission with this whole thing is to help people learn how to take control over their finances and change their financial destiny forever. That's where the name comes from. So, I mean, to monopolize something is to take possession of a market or an object or something and just take control over that. So we want people to know how they can have complete control over their finances and also build generational wealth for the future. So, I mean, it's something that right now is not talked about a lot, and that's definitely something we want to try to change the stigma of. And just going into it, me personally, I see a lot of ignorance when it comes to personal finance. So I want to give people the knowledge to help them make informed decisions. Just all the time, just for example, scrolling through Twitter, I see a lot of dumb stuff. Like when I see there's something people are doing right now, the unpopular opinion, the money edition, people on there holding tweets, and then they would say stuff like, just spend it or spend that ish or whatever it will be. And I'm like, and then they get 30,000, 40,000, 50,000 retweets. All these people are getting that terrible information. It's like, bro, come on, man. Do not take financial advice from broke people, bro. They don't have the ethos to help you. It's like if you went to the gym and you got a personal trainer and they were out of shape, bro. It's like, come on now. I'm not going to take advice from you. They just lose all credibility at that point. So it's definitely something where you got to use your best judgment. I mean, you got to think, this is how a majority of people are thinking. A majority of people think this way. I mean, the way you, like, for example, on that Twitter example, that's how a majority of people will think. Oh, I could just spend my money. But you got to think, how do a majority of people end up? They end up broke or middle class. So this tells you got to do something, something different at least. So also, I think another big reason we're starting this is because the money isn't really talked about a lot with schools and in school and with families. It's kind of like something that's taboo, right? So we could change the stigma of that sort of. I think we can if we really wanted to. So, I mean, what do you think about that, Marlon?
Yeah, and I feel like we can definitely change this perspective because I think that the people that we'll be reaching out to can relate to us a little bit more, mainly because we're young. We just graduated out of college. We still are learning at the same time as they will be learning. So I feel like, especially also with our background, we have a background that's not really seen a lot in this atmosphere, like as far as, say, investing or money management, that's not seen in a young African-American males. And I feel like we can reach a different target audience in general, or just minorities in general, or just anybody who's young and just got into the corporate world. I think we can definitely have a big impact on like reaching out to that community.
Yeah, definitely. There's a market share there for us to reach. And I mean, that doesn't say like, oh, this podcast isn't for you if you're not one of those. But
right.
This is definitely something anyone can listen to and anyone can gain valuable information from. So, but I think there is definitely something to be said for that target audience. So
definitely.
I think now is a good time to get into who we are now and kind of what our background is and where we come from and how we relate to money. So y'all can kind of see where we're coming from in our perspective. So for me personally, I was born in Kenya and I moved to the U.S. when I was 1 year old. I pretty much grew up in Houston, Texas, and ended up going to UTSA whenever I was 18, went there and studied civil engineering. and I graduated in December of 2017, and I've been in the corporate America ever since then, working as a civil engineer here in San Antonio, Texas. So, what about you?
Yep. So a little bit of background on me. I'll just give like a brief summary. I was born in Detroit, Michigan, where I spent the first 10 years of my life growing up, inner city of Detroit. Then my dad's job, he worked at DuPont. He ended up relocating us to Houston, Texas, where I spent the rest of my years up until now growing up. So ended up meeting Alex when we was in 7th grade. Yeah. There's a whole story behind that, but just in short, we just gel real well together because we had the very similar mindset with each other. So I think that we had just a very good connection from the get-go. And we ended up growing up through high school. After we graduated, we ended up going like our separate ways. He went to UTSA, I went to SFA, both in Texas still. But we stopped talking. We didn't talk as much as we do now, of course. But we both graduated in 3.5 years. I went to SFA. I played football as well. Graduated 4.0 student, and started off in corporate America in December of 2018. And from there, I learned how little I actually knew, because the very first thing that I got hit with was these things called taxes. And I had no clue what that was.
That boy was shook. I didn't know what to do.
That's just me being transparent. I had no clue. I was like, when I saw how much I got taken away, I'm like, what is that? Because that was never taught to me growing up. So that's really what just motivated me to be like, I need to learn anything I can about this, because obviously school hasn't taught me everything that I needed to know, and there's so much more that I don't know.
Yeah.
And so that's how we started talking again a lot.
Yeah.
And from there on, I ended up working at APL, and I applied physics laboratory in Johns Hopkins. I worked there for the first half of 2018. And did pretty much save all I could during that time. And now I'm at Purdue doing a master's degree in mechanical engineering.
Woo! Okay. It's definitely a lot in there. I think, because one thing Marlon was talking about was just what he knew about money growing up. And, he's talking about the taxes. He wasn't like aware that taxes were going to be taken out of his paycheck. But you got to think about that. Like, okay, that was never something anyone was taught. Like, you weren't taught that at school. And if you didn't have a job when you were in high school, how are you going to know about that?
And so, main reason I didn't know about it, I know it's dumb to not know, but as a football player, especially I played football since 8th grade, never had a summer job because I was always in summer camp. Yeah. Never had anything over the winter. That's only like 4 weeks. Nobody want to hire you. Yeah. Over like winter break. So spring break, you got 1 week. Yeah, so all that being said, I planned all the way through undergrad. I only had one internship, and that was at Johns Hopkins the previous summer. And we didn't have the same taxes because it was intern tax versus actually getting paid full time.
So salary versus
right. It was hourly versus salary.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it was very different because it was like an intern versus actual full time worker. It would just taxes were applied differently.
Mm-hmm.
But once you get hit with federal tax, you're like, boy. but just to go back to what you were saying, you're not taught that type of stuff growing up, especially if you don't experience it, you're not taught it.
Yeah, facts. And I think for me personally, like I always was like money motivated, even when I was younger. Marlon knows when we going back to like 7th grade, they called me Eugene Krabs because I was so cheap and how much you could say love money when I was younger. It was just something, I don't know. It was like, man, I just want to chase it. And I was always like in the back of my head and everything I did. And I knew for me, I always wanted to be an entrepreneur in some way or form. And how it looked back then is a lot different from how it looks now in terms of like how I want to get there and how I want it to look at the end. Because when I was younger, I always say, oh yeah, I want to start an engineering firm. That's the thing I want to do. And I remember I brought that up to Marlon, like when we was like, this was probably we were juniors in college, and we were just back home. And I told him, I was like, yeah, bro, we need to start an engineering firm. This dude wasn't hearing nothing of that.
Yeah, I always say there's a difference between hearing and listening. I just heard what he said. I ain't listened to nothing. Like, oh, that's what's up.
Yeah,
that's cool.
I was like, come on, bro, we could do this.
On my day, I ain't worried about what you're talking about.
Yeah, but see, now it looks different now because for me, after I read Rich Dad Poor Dad, at least I knew like, okay, there's a difference between being a business owner and being a professional investor. And now I want to be a professional investor. I want to operate on that medium. So I would say last thing about me to wrap up who we are is my goal is right now I'm 22. By the time I'm 28, I want to be financially independent, 100% financial freedom. That's my biggest goal in life right now. And I'm doing everything in my power right now to get there. And we're going to kind of talk about what financial independence is and what that looks like. But what about you, Marlon? What are some of your goals for?
So Alex is very ambitious. He wants to be done about 5-6 years. And
I wish I was done right now.
No, I wouldn't want to say done doesn't mean that you're not working anymore, or it's just about having the choice to work. We'll get more into that later, but mine personally is to be done 10 years from when I began. So since I'm 22 and technically this is more so when I'm beginning, I want to be done by the age I want to be financially free by the time I'm 32 years old. And I feel like we're definitely on our way with the mindset that we're in and with the action steps that we're taking.
Your upbringing plays a huge role in how you view money as you become older. See, it's real easy to pick up the habits and tendencies that our parents have because that's usually the most we're ever exposed to money when we're younger. It's not taught in schools at all, right? So there isn't even a class about personal finance, taxes, investing, or even something as simple as budgeting. But thank God we know the Pythagorean theorem and that Christopher Columbus sailed the ocean blue in 1492.
Facts.
But yeah, I think we should go ahead and get a little more into what is financial freedom since we keep mentioning that topic.
Yeah. So I had this is a good time for me to mention this. I actually just put an article out on moneymonopolizers.com, our website, just talking about kind of what financial freedom is. So y'all could go check that out. It's on there right now. It's you could probably read it in 5 minutes. Marlon said it was a little long, but I don't think it was that long. It looked a little longer on the mobile though. I ain't gonna lie, but it's a good read though. I think it's definitely something you should check out if you. But let's get into what that is. So for me, the way I define financial freedom and the way I guess everyone defines it is it's the ability not to have to trade in my time for money and still be able to maintain my current lifestyle. So it's choosing to work versus having to work. So
in general, people are used to working 30 to 40 years from the time they're 20 to the time they're about 60, 65 years old. Then they retire and then enjoy the fruits of their labor, as they always say. But in this difference is that the money that you make as passive income, we'll get more into that, will supplement your lifestyle. So that being said, all your bills that you have to pay, that you don't have to rely on working at your full-time job in order to pay for those bills. You have passive income coming in that will pay for that for you. So now that allows you to make a choice in your life saying, do I want to work for just for extra money, or do I just want to go enjoy my life now because all my necessities are being paid for?
And the thing about financial freedom is it's kind of, it looks different for everyone. It's different for everyone. You don't have to be wealthy to be financially free. You don't have to be you don't have to have a lot of money. Most people that are financially free, but I mean, you don't technically have to be, because the thing about financial freedoms, it's relative to you. You have enough assets to cover your expenses. So however that looks for you, whether that's 5 properties, 10 properties, 100 properties, 1,000 properties, it's different for everyone. So the thing about it is it doesn't make you money rich in a sense, but it makes you time rich. You gain your time back, and that's the most valuable thing I think for a lot of us is your time, and that's what financial freedom kind of gives you. So it's definitely there's a lot that goes into it, but the core of it is pretty simple. It's just I don't have to go to work and I still get money. I can do what I want with my day and I'll still get money because I have assets generating income known as passive income. Passive income is income that is, I mean, like the name says, it's generated passively. You didn't have to go to work, earn that income. You didn't have to do anything. It just came in passively. And
right, you don't have to trade in your time for money, basically.
Yeah, exactly. And there's a bunch of different ways to do that. I mean, some of the most common ones that people do are, I mean, for us personally, are rental properties. That's the number one I think definitely for us. It's rental property that produces income or cash flow, dividends that you can get from stocks or bonds or income trusts or anything like that, or interest gained on your deposit accounts, Yeah, Marlon's laughing because he knows about that.
Nah,
That 0.01%.
Yeah. See, now what he's talking about, if you ever look in your bank account, your savings account, if you look at the interest rate that you're making on your money, people say that they're actually making their money made them money, but if you look at the interest rate, it says like 0.01%, and that's basically saying you get 10 cents on like $1,000 that you have in there every month, and that's you're not even keeping up with the
rate of inflation.
Rate of inflation, man.
Yeah. So it's. I mean, we're gonna get into that in next episode a little more in detail, but we'll tell you why it's. I mean, probably not a good idea to put all your eggs into one basket, and that basket being your bank account. So we'll get into that in this next episode. I mean, but the thing about financial freedom is anyone can achieve it. It's for anyone. It doesn't have to. There's no age attached to it. You don't have to be 65. You don't have to be anything. Anyone can achieve it. But the thing about it is everyone has to have a why, foundational why, because the why is what's going to keep you going and motivated to get it. And I mean, it should be that why for why you want to be financially free should be synonymous with your life's purpose. So, I mean, you think of this from the simplest form, like think of a conversation with a toddler that you're having with a toddler, right? And if you're talking with a toddler and you tell a toddler to do something, they're going to say, why, right? They're going to be like, why? You say, go to bed, why? And you tell them to go get me this, why? And they ask why on everything, right? So you kind of got to approach it from that same perspective. So if I asked you, why did you get out of bed? And you say to go to work. And I say, well, why are you going to work? And you say, so I can earn money and grow my career. Why do you want to grow money and grow your career? Well, so I can increase my savings and invest in assets that provide passive income. This is for me personally. And then if I say, well, why do you want to invest in assets that provide passive income? Well, so I can be financially free. I could travel. I could spend more time with my family and friends. And I don't have to be at a job every 40 hours every week. I mean, and most people stop there whenever they get to that level of why. Most people just say, oh, I just want to be financially free. But you got to dig deeper because it's so easy to find an excuse if your motivation fades. Because, I mean, if I say I just want to be financially free so I can travel enough, well, I mean, you can get to a point in life where it's like, I'm working and I actually have been traveling enough. So I don't really need to keep going, and you just kind of lose motivation. So you got to ask yourself why again. So for me, if someone was asking me that and I told them so I can be financially free and they asked me why, so I'm going to say so I can provide a better life for the next generation, meaning my next generation, and then allow my family to have anything that they want. And also because I don't want to miss any important life events of my family because I had to go to work. So that's kind of that's what my why is. So I know I need to create that passive income stream to sustain that quality of life that I'm aiming to get. So for me, that's motivation enough to never quit because I know what the future looks like. What about you, Marlon?
All right. Yeah, I'm very motivated more so from how I saw my parents while I was growing up. So playing football through high school and college, they never missed a game. So and they weren't financially free, but they always had to make time in order to do that. So they would have to work extra overtime so that on Saturdays or Fridays, whichever day my game was, they would be able to make the game. And they went, whether it was in northern Iowa, whether it was in Kansas State, whether it was TCU, no matter where it was, they were always there and trying to support me. And I feel like that goes a long way in a child's life. So I want to be able to pay that forward and be able to be in my child's life the same way that they were in mine. So that's just for starters. And I also want to be able to provide for my children. And like you mentioned earlier, for generations to come, I want to be able to get to not have my children have to worry about anything financially. I always know that we'll be well taken care of financially. You won't have to worry about, hey, turn that light off, man. That bill going up too high. No, I don't have to worry about any of that. I just want to be able to take care of my family the way that I feel like we ought to be able to.
Yeah.
And just be able to provide for my wife, be able to provide for kids, grandkids, the house that you want, the cars that we want. And just be able to live the lifestyle that we choose to live and not have to spend 40 hours in the office every day or every week.
I think, we definitely I think we're on earth for a much greater purpose than to be spending most of our time in a cubicle for 40 years. So whatever I got to do to get there. And if that means I got to be different now, then so be it. Because I know in the future it's going to be well worth it. So it's important. If we're going to mention financial freedom, it's important to mention one of the foundational pieces of education that is out there when it comes to financial freedom. And that's Marlon's boy, Robert T. Kiyosaki, the writer of Rich Dad Poor Dad. I'm sure, most people have heard of this book. Some people even say, oh, they read it, but you know how that goes. So one of the biggest, I read that book last year. Well, my last year in school, which was 2017. And then I read it again after I graduated because, I recommended it to Marlon, and Marlon read it again. I was like, okay, I need to read it. Or Marlon read it, and then I said I need to read it too, so I can, we could be on that same page. And one of the things, like I was mentioning earlier in that book, was they talked about a lot about the 4 type of earners, and those are the employee, which has a job, the self-employed person who owns a job, the business owner who owns a system that works for them, and the investor that has money work for them. So when I read that book, I knew, okay, I want to be a professional investor, because that's what I was going back to earlier when I was saying earlier, when I was younger, I wanted to have an engineering firm, but now it looks a lot different, because I know with an engineering firm, if I had an engineering firm, that's essentially still a job. I'm just now in a higher level. I'm a higher position, but that's still taking up my time. It doesn't make me time rich. I want my time to be free and still have that money. So the only way to get that is really through investing, or unless you create a business that has its own system and it runs without you. So, but I think the easiest or the best way to get that for most people would be through investing. And what do you think about that, Marlon?
I want to touch back a little bit on why Rich Dad Poor Dad is just so impactful to the people who read it. So yeah, like Alex said, he mentioned Rich Dad Poor Dad to me last year, like around February, and once I read it, I literally read that book in 2 days, because it's so full of information that is not told to you in schools or in your household. One thing that it tells you more than anything else is how the rich use their money versus the poor and middle class. So it'll show you like just a guideline of where, a money stream of where rich and poor, or where the poor people or middle class use their money versus rich. So the poor poor and middle class will make their money at work. After they've worked for it, they will trade their time in for money. Then they go straight to expenses, such as a new car, bills, or just
liabilities.
Yeah, anything that's a liability to you. Exactly. Versus the rich, who will make their money working their job, then they will invest it, and then they'll pay it off their other like bills and stuff that are their liabilities. But they invest in assets that will produce more money for them on the side. That way, those assets start producing money for you, which end up being able to take care of all of your expenses. Allows you to become financially independent. And so that's never taught to anybody growing up. And I feel like that was what really changes people's mindset as far as how they should utilize their money.
Yeah. And Marlon, he mentioned something, and it kind of made me think of something, because he in the book, Robert Kiyosaki, he calls them rich, and he says rich versus poor / middle class. But to me, I call it wealthy, because I see it. I've been thinking about this a lot, and I really think that there's a difference between rich people and wealthy people. It sounds the same to most people. They sound synonymous, but I think there's really a difference, because the thing about rich people is rich people are essentially poor / middle class people with a lot of money. So a lot of rich people are just high income earners, but they still have the same spending habits of poor / middle class people. They just have a higher income and they have a higher lifestyle. So, what happens if they suddenly lost that income though? Then, they're broke and they're stuck with those liabilities that still need to be paid for. They ain't going nowhere just because you ain't got your money no more. You still need to pay for them. And that's why a lot of pro athletes and lottery winners usually end up broke. Yep. Yeah, because they had that poor mentality. You got that poor / middle class mentality still. You got all this money and you still operating like a broke dude. So it's like the key difference is the financial literacy between the wealthy people and the rich people. And I say this too: a rich person is just someone that's either waiting to be poor or they were waiting to be wealthy. So you just kind of on that line. So it's I mean, that's kind of how I look at it. And what do you think about that, Marlon? You have anything to add to that?
No, you pretty much hit on everything that I was thinking about, especially just it really revolves on, like you said, financial illiteracy. So most people don't know how to use their money. So like you said, with the lottery, especially, you always hear those stories where somebody hit the lottery and then they end up broke over the next few months because they don't know how to make their money last. And that's where I feel like we can make an impact on our audience, being able to explain to them how to not use their money and also where they should be using their money at.
Yeah. And it's definitely like you got to know wealth is a side effect of financial literacy. It's not the other way around. It's not, you don't get financial literacy after you get wealthy.
Right.
So you just because you got money now don't mean you're gonna be smart with it. You still can easily be a fool, and we see that every day, time and time again. So it's kind of something that people just got to be aware of and be cognizant of whenever they're thinking about money and dealing with money.
Financial freedom is something that very few people are actually aware of, primarily due to a lack of financial education. But this is a concept anyone can grasp and achieve if they took the time to improve their financial literacy. That's the key to all of this. Financial literacy leads to earning money that will lead to freedom. When you take the time to improve your financial literacy and learn how to purchase assets that produce income, you'll be learning something that can prove to be even more lucrative than a college education can be. The one simple rule is to know the difference between an asset and a liability, then purchase assets. This is how some of the wealthiest people are able to vacation all year round, have a high-end lifestyle, and never work a job. They can increase their expenses and lifestyle just by increasing their assets.
I think we should talk a little bit more like how do we handle money so we can like provide them an example of what somebody who handles money responsibly looks like. So like talk about how your personal finances look almost and what do you do with the paychecks that you make?
So, one thing to know about personal finance is it is relative. Like personal finance it looks different for everyone. I mean, someone that's making $15,000 a month, they can spend $10,000 maybe, and they can still save a good amount of money. But someone else that is earning $3,000, they can't save as much. But I mean, it's the thing about it is it's more about the percentages at that point. It's not really just about the dollars. So it's important to mention that it is relative. So because someone's personal finances look like this, that doesn't mean yours have to look like that. I mean, they have a different upbringing. I mean, they make a different amount of money, so it looks different for everyone. But for me personally, I know the biggest thing for me is I have to account for every dollar that I make. I know that that's the number one thing I had to do whenever I'm looking at my finances, because I know that if I don't know where I'm spending my money, then I'm just going to spend it any kind of way. If I don't put my money, I have 6 bank accounts because I know that I mean, that's including the business ones, but I know that I need this money for this, I need this money for this, and I need this money for this money for that. So if I have money just mixed up, then it's gonna get spent the wrong way that it wasn't intended to spend. And I think when I do that, when I can account for all my dollars, it makes me a lot more cognizant about where I am spending my money and what I'm spending my money on. I mean, that's the biggest thing for me, because I know whenever I first graduated, I was saving about 50% of my income and working. I was paying like $1,200 in rent in an apartment, saving 50% of my income. That was just kind of what I was doing. But as I kind of made more money, and I knew, okay, I can't just put 50% away and just call it a day and say, okay, I did good. I need to account for every dollar. So now I take I go into more detail with every dollar that I get. I take a percentage of all my checks and I put them into a certain account, because I know, okay, this account is going to cover my bills. This account is going to cover my miscellaneous. This account will cover my savings. This account will cover my investments. So it's kind of, I know where every dollar I'm earning is going by putting them into those different accounts. And that's how it looks for me. What about for you?
Right. For me, well, I just want to comment on yours first. You are much more detail with what you where all your money goes. Like you have everything going into a specific account. Right as soon as you get your paycheck, yourself getting dropped into a certain account, so you don't even see it no more.
Nope, I don't want to see it.
Mine, since I come from a background of always wanting to save every dollar I make, and like when I was growing up, my parents would like give me money for Christmas and stuff, where I would just like say they gave me $100, I would just be like, oh, I'm saving all this. So next Christmas comes around and they like, you still got that same money from last Christmas? Yeah. And my granny be like, man, you're gonna get hit by a bus one day, and then we gonna be like, man, Marlon, that's a bankroll. Oh yes. But so I had that same perspective when I started working at Johns Hopkins Applied Physics Laboratory last year. So like Alex said, he was saving 50% of his check. I was probably saving nearly 60% of every check I made, paying $800 in rent, and I did have my car too. So I probably paid for gas twice a month, about $50 in gas. And then I ate ramen noodles, low key, because I'm so opposed to spending money on stuff that I just try to save as much as I could. But it all goes back to having that why. Because we were thinking toward our future, like what were we going to be doing in the near future, which was ended up. We'll talk about more about this later, but we ended up buying a house. We both ended up buying houses in our respective areas. He bought one in San Antonio. I ended up buying one here in Lafayette, Indiana. Where we both live here and rent out the rooms as opposed to renting anymore. Yeah. So I think we'll get a lot more into that later on, like to discuss details of it. But we had a why, like a vision of where our money wanted to go before we just started putting it away. Because if you have no direction while you're saving money, you're going to be more likely to just spend it. Yeah, and I feel like that's why we need to have that mindset of, okay, I have a plan for this, instead of just going at it like, oh yeah, I want to save because they said save. No, you have to have a plan on what you want to do with your money while you're saving it. That way you will be more likely to save it as opposed to just spending it.
Mm-hmm. Something that everyone has to look at, like, what is your goal? What is your goal in life? Or in regards to finances, what is your goal to? What do you want to achieve with that? And I mean, you kind of align your finances to point you into, or to put you into the correct direction to achieve that. So that's how it looked for us. We knew we had to we need to increase our savings rate so we can get these houses so that we can start investing. And so now, I mean, it's an automated process now. That thing is running and gunning now. So
right.
Now it's just, we moving along real well. So it's definitely looking good. And I think the biggest thing about personal finance is budgeting. That is, I mean, you can talk about savings, you can talk about earnings, you can talk about cutting expenses, you can talk about all that. But to me, the biggest thing is budgeting. You got to know where your money's going. I mean, and the problem is, there's a few problems with how people budget now. I think we should look at those perspectives and then get into like why those are incorrect, or why you shouldn't look at it like that. What the problem is with it now, a lot of people, they don't create a budget for themselves. So this kind of just leads to like we were talking about earlier, you just spend money anywhere because you don't know where it's going. You don't limit yourself to this spending in this area. You don't say, okay, I only need to spend $30 this week on eating out. You kind of just do whatever because you don't have a plan for it. You're not cognizant of that. So I mean, it's kind of, that's how people look at it now. Some people, they might say, okay, I'll put some money aside for the bills, and then say, here's some bills money. But that's the majority of people, that's the most they do in terms of budgeting. And very few people actually save or invest money. I mean, just because they have so many lifestyle expenses, they inadvertently end up living paycheck to paycheck. You could be a high income earner, but still living paycheck to paycheck. It just depends on your lifestyle. I mean, just because you make more money don't mean you got more money. Yeah, you got to look at the lifestyle and how that looks. So, and then definitely right now when you're young, I mean, that's the perfect time to like kind of hone in on your budgeting skills and those personal finance skills. So a lot of people in their 20s, they end up blowing them and wasting them and just burning them because they made stupid purchases coming out of college, buying brand new cars, whatever the case may be, cars you can't even afford. The bank, I mean, they need a person that sold them to you need to go to jail. I mean, honestly, because that was a robbery. They freaking robbed you. And a lot of people are doing that kind of stuff. So it's important to be cognizant of your budgeting right now in your 20s, because it's going to set you up for the rest of your life. It's a lot harder to change those habits whenever you're a lot older than it is to fix them now whenever you're young. And I mean, you just started making a good amount of money, so you can. It's easy to kind of change how you're managing it right now when it's still fresh. But after you've been doing something for 20, 30 years or 10, 15, 20 years, it's going to be a lot harder to change those habits. So that's kind of how people look at it now. Marlon, you want to tell them like?
Yeah, I wanted to talk a little bit more on, you said most people blow off their 20s. So I want to at least I want to come at it from an angle of why they do this. So people usually will grow up, especially once they get to college, they'll go through college having to sacrifice so much because they got to do so much studying. So they feel like once they graduate, they almost feel like they're entitled to certain things, like a brand new house, granite countertops, marble flooring, marble walls in the bathroom and all that. But
not too much
well, okay, let's take it a step further. They feel like they need the biggest house on the block. They feel like they need the nicest and best Tesla that's out there currently. But so they basically put themselves behind the 8-ball because they just financed it over 30 years or however many years. But now they have to go to work just so that they can pay off these big expenses versus somebody who like us who delayed their gratification. So basically grind in your 20s where you can pave a path for yourself in your 30s, 40s, 50s, and so on and so forth. So it's just about giving that little sacrifice because now you're in the corporate world where you're making money. And so now if you start saving that as opposed to having to spend it on this big house and this brand new Tesla that you just bought, you can actually put that money into assets that's going to start generating income for you. And I feel like before you even get to that point, it's just about understanding where every dollar that you make is being allocated to. And I think you said you had some more points on that too as well.
Well, I want to touch on what you kind of just said right there. You got to think who comes out of school. Think about this. You come out of school, you making, let's say $60,000, whatever you're making salary, and you're going to go buy a brand new car worth $50,000. How stupid does that sound? That's like idiotic. You shooting yourself in the foot. You got to think about it from that perspective. Delayed gratification is very important. So, but this is kind of, I think, like we just been saying, that's the biggest thing is every dollar that you earn has to be accounted for. So your bills, all the expenses, your miscellaneous, your fund money, your savings and investments, that's got to be those. You got to have allocations for each of those areas because those are lifestyle areas. And I think savings and investment is so important. It's like crazy how important it is, especially when you're young. Always in life, it's always important. But I think saving is important because you got to think about it from this perspective. We always pay everyone before we pay ourselves first, right? So we're in a sense we're slaves. We pay the federal government because they take money out of our paychecks. Yes. We pay the bank or the landlord that owns our property. We pay all our bills, all your expenses. You're slaves. You're not exactly all that. You're paying all that first, but you gotta prioritize paying yourself first. That's got to be the number one priority. Because if you don't, you're just gonna take what's left, and that's gonna be barely anything for most people. So you gotta know how to sacrifice, or you gotta know how to. You gotta know how to pay yourself first in order to build generational wealth. It's very important.
Explain that a little bit. Paying yourself first. What do you mean by that for anybody who doesn't understand that?
Yeah. So paying yourself first, in a sense, it's just whenever you get paid, immediately put some away in savings and investments. Immediately. Like, I'm not saying that. Look, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying don't pay your bills. Like, obviously, I'm not saying that. If you take that from this, then okay. But I'm not saying that. It means taking a portion of your check or a portion of your income and immediately putting it away. Immediately. And you don't touch it. You just put it away and you don't touch it. That got to be the first thing you do with your money. Because if you don't, you're going to pay your bills and then you're going to see what's left and you're going to be like, it's barely anything left. I need something new I want to buy. I want to go buy that new bag I saw, them new kicks that I saw. So, and you're not going to think about saving it. That's how a lot of people are going to approach it. So if you pay yourself first, you're going to pay that. And then whatever is left is going to go to the bills. Let them get paid next. You pay yourself first.
And I guess I'll go into one more thing. In order to like an action item for everybody to take on at the end of this podcast, this would just be to make themselves a budget spreadsheet so you can track your expenses for 1 month and see where all your money is going. So you'll see that you spending $500 on shoes this month. You spent $300 on going out to eat. You spent $800 on your rent. So you spend all this money, and then make sure you also put in how much money you made that month. And what you need to do is do your income minus all your expenses to see how much profit are you making per month. And then you can start nickel and diamond, or where you need to start decreasing your expenses at. So instead of spending $500 on shoes in 1 month, why not spend $200 on shoes if you have to have shoes that bad? Or if you have a car note that's $1,000, if it's more than your rent, you should probably get rid of that car and get you something that's not going to be as expensive. I mean, if you can do that. So say have a $200, $300 car note as opposed to a $500, $600 car note. But all that being said, you just need to be able to visualize where is your money going, so that way you can better plan for how you want to save your money and then for future investments.
Mm-hmm. And Marlon, you mentioned a good point. You talk about making a budget spreadsheet. That's a great tool that's going to help you actually visualize it. Because, I mean, it's hard to make a change when you can't really see an area that needs improvement, right? It's hard to actually know, okay, I need to do. And that's why, I mean, this is not related, but I mean, just in life in general, whenever you want to improve in a certain aspect of life, you have to be able to first be aware that there's a problem there, right? You have to be able to identify it, and then you can make a change. And I think a budget spreadsheet is a good way to do that. And also, you should check out the Mint app too. That's an app I've been using a lot for budgeting.
Exact topic. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, and seeing how my finances look, because the Mint app is really good because it actually links all your cards and all your accounts. So as soon as you spend money, it tells you, or it's getting directly your budget for that week or however you set it up for the month is being affected, and you can see it changing in real time. So I think that's really cool. Everyone should check out the Mint app. It's by Intuit. You can check it out on the App Store. And I think in the future on moneymonopolizers.com, we're gonna try to put out some resources on there that could help people, for example, a spreadsheet. I know Marlon could put something together real quick that'll be pretty easy to use or intuitive for everyone to use. So yeah,
it's important to be cognizant of where your money is going. That goes for every dollar you earn. The best way to stay aware is through budgeting. By accounting for every dollar you earn, you won't be liable to spend money unnecessarily. Now, you don't have to go to the extreme like me and have 6 bank accounts, but you should definitely try to allocate your money in a way that won't allow you to overspend in any specific area. Budgeting allows you to recognize where you're spending too much and make a change. It's hard to improve in something when you aren't aware of the problem. It's something to get used to in the beginning, but eventually the process becomes autonomous and you'll find yourself doing it subconsciously. This will allow you to commit more of your money to savings and investments.
This podcast is coming to a close now, but one thing we want to leave y'all with was mainly for anybody who's still in college, anybody who's getting ready to go into the corporate world, and who you may not be making a lot of money right now, but you will be in the future. So we want to basically give you the tools to where you'll be able to correctly utilize your money once you do get to that point, as opposed to doing like the majority of society does and just start spending money on a brand new car, brand new 3,000 square foot house, something crazy that's going to put you behind a few years. We think that it's really important right now to build on your financial literacy. So we recommended earlier, read books like Rich Dad Poor Dad that will change your mindset to more of a saving and investing type mindset, to where you can build generational wealth as opposed to just building generational liabilities and expenses.
Yeah.
And then,
so
do you have anything else to add to that?
Yeah, I mean, definitely. I think the important thing to do also is to begin prioritizing your savings when you're in college. Don't wait till after you graduate to start saying, okay, now I need to save. Whatever money you are making, if you are making money or if you're getting money, every college student is getting some sort of money somehow. So you just, even if you're saving $20 a week, something, just getting into that mindset of, okay, I need to put this away because I know I want to get this. And I'm not saying, look, because I mean, I'll get into this in the next episode in more detail, but I'm not just saying to save just to save. But I mean, it's important to actually learn to prioritize that when you are making a little amount of money, because just because you start making more money don't mean you're going to start saving after you graduate. So I mean, just go back to what we were talking about earlier. More money don't mean doesn't lead to financial literacy. It's not wealth is a side effect of financial literacy, not the other way around. So, I mean, when you do that, it allows you to attack. I mean, a lot of people are going to graduate with student loans, and whenever you do start saving in college, it helps you get into that mindset of, okay, I can attack my student loans, and I can get these down, and I don't have to have this crippling me for as long, because now you already had that mindset of, okay, this is going towards this. And then, I mean, like Marlon was saying, you're not going to make, stupid decisions just by like buying a brand new car, getting caught up in a trend. That's a big thing. You can't get caught up in trends. It's something that cripples a lot of people that come out of college. They see people doing this and they go do it too just because it's something hot.
And if this is something you think you might struggle with, then check this out then.
Nice wheels.
Yeah. Well,
So how old is this caddy?
I think it's about 5 years or so.
You'd think the third richest man in the world might have his own chauffeur, but not Warren Buffett. He prefers being in the driver's seat.
Do any of your billionaire friends ever joke with you about the Cadillac and that you're driving and not something flashier?
No, they know me pretty well. This is the McDonald's I go to frequently.
So what do you have at McDonald's?
Probably 3 times out of 4 I get a sausage and McMuffin, but then at lunchtime I get a quarter pounder and fries.
A modest meal for a man worth some $46 billion.
All right, so we're wrapping up this episode of the Money Monopolizers podcast, and just stay tuned for next week's episode where we talk about what we feel is the most important asset on the path to financial independence. And you, Alex, you go ahead and close us out, man.
That's it for this episode of the Money Monopolizers podcast. We hope you learned something of value today. If you did, we appreciate it. If you rated us and left a review on iTunes, you can find out, or Apple Podcasts, I guess now. You can find out more info about us on Twitter at the Money Monopolizers, or you can hit us up on our personal social media pages. I'm at iComunio and at Deuce Walls. We're gonna put it right here on the screen, or I guess in the notes if you listening to this. But until then, we out of here.
You've been listening to the Money Monopolizers Podcast, helping you take control of your financial destiny. To learn more about how you can be in control of your money, visit moneymonopolizers.com. We'll catch you next time when Alex and Marlon share more personal finance and wealth creation tips with you. Now it's time to take action.